Welcome back. Today, Rosie and I are going to be talking about protein, dairy, and healthy fats. A few of the objectives that we're going to be covering in the Building a Healthy Temple Nutrition curriculum is the recommendation for my plate, protein, also dairy, and healthy fats. We're going to talk a little bit about why protein is important in the diet, proper storage for protein, and also talk a little bit about the healthy fats and why we need them in our diet as well.
Okay, so today's recipe, we are going to be making tuna de gallo. Some of you may be familiar with pico de gallo. It's the same concept, but we're also going to be adding another protein source to it.
So my plate recommends that we need protein in our diet for a few different reasons. One of them is for building lean muscle. Lean muscle is very important, especially as we get older. Another reason why we need protein is for tissue repair. If you have an injury, if you have a broken bone, the need for protein actually increases. Another reason why protein is very important is because it provides growth. So for children, we need that growth, and then as adults, we need that growth as well. So very important for that, as well as the immune system. So protein is a very essential part of our diet, but there's a lot of different ways that we can get protein. More common, we think about protein being just beef, red meats, but there's a variety of different proteins. So we look at chicken, turkey, fish, beans are even a source of protein, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So what are some of your favorite types of protein, Rosie?
My favorite are the animal sources. However, I do try to limit red meat, just because red meat, it can be higher in saturated fat. And over time, when consuming a lot of saturated fats, it can increase your LDL levels, which are considered the bad cholesterol. And over time, it can create heart disease.
The recommendation for protein is only 5.5 to 6 ounces per day. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, and it really isn't. The serving size for one serving size for a chicken, if you think about a chicken breast, the size of a deck of cards, or the size of a petite woman's palm, it's very small. You think about going to the grocery store and you look at chicken breasts, those chicken breasts are huge. Definitely not the size of a palm, so sometimes it might even be half. Another serving of a protein would be 1 egg. So if you had a hard-boiled egg for breakfast, one serving is 1 egg. So if I had 2 servings for breakfast, that's already 2 ounces. So 5.5 to 6 ounces is really easy to get to. Unfortunately, with our culture, we tend to eat a little bit too much protein. So learning about the healthier sources of protein, we definitely want to be looking at leaner cuts of meat, leaner cuts of chicken, making sure that we're trimming the fat off of our meats as much as we can. One of the other things to keep in mind when you're buying ground beef or lean meats is when you go to the grocery store, you're going to find different percentages. You might see 85-15. That's going to be a higher fat meat. You might even see 70-30. Your goal, as far as my plate recommends, that we go from 90-10, or even 93-7. That's going to be definitely healthier when it comes to the lean choices of meat.
Mm-hmm. Most people will go for the 70-30 just simply because it is more cost effective. It is the most affordable meat. So that's something to be aware of as well.
But we didn't mention that there are different methods for also preparing our protein. A better method would be baking chicken or grilling a steak versus frying chicken or frying another type of meat. So very important that we look at the leaner ways to cook. So that would be roasting, that would be grilling, that would be baking rather than frying or even sauteing. Another thing to keep in mind is that not all of our protein sources have to be from an animal. So just like Rosie mentioned about cholesterol, cholesterol is found in our animal products. So when it comes to a vegetarian choice, you might want to consider maybe beans as being a source of protein as well. Maybe another one would be a tofu or nuts. And again, a serving for nuts is very small. It's a handful. Might be 20 almonds, I believe I read 20 almonds, which is a really small amount. So again, learning about that, going back to your reading your food label, very, very important, especially when you're looking at fitting in between that 5.5 to 6 ounces per day. Very, very easy to get to.
All right, guys, so right now we're going to start with our recipe. We're going to start by dicing the tomatoes while I am going to be chopping the onions.
When we look at some of the protein choices, we talked a little bit about your vegetarian meals. The recommendation for My Plate, the USDA recommends that we have 1 to 2 meals per week as vegetarian. Rosie, what is your favorite vegetarian dish?
I really like to have vegetables and beans thrown together with a nice, with olive oil as the dressing.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite is probably going to be a pasta salad with tofu instead of using chicken. I love tofu. It's definitely a low fat, not too expensive, and definitely a good source of protein.
Yes, definitely.
Even though you can add vegetarian meals to your diet, protein is still very important to include in your diet, which red meat probably going to be our more common source or choice of meat. So what are some benefits from eating red meat, Rosie?
Red meat does contain important nutrients such as protein that we already mentioned. It helps with muscles and bones. It also contains iron and B vitamins. It also has zinc and magnesium. So you don't necessarily want to avoid red meat entirely. However, it is very important to limit it just because red meat does have a higher saturated fat, and if you consume a diet higher in saturated fat, your LDL levels will increase. So as you notice with this recipe, we are using tuna, and just how we mentioned you're wanting to lower the consumption of red meat, this is one good alternative just by adding this as opposed to beef or some other animal product. So one other popular ingredient in pico de gallo is going to be the avocado. Not only is it good tasting, but it also has a lot of good benefits for you. The avocado does contain fats, however, it does contain healthy fats, and it lowers bad cholesterol. So in the diet, there are 3 macronutrients, one being carbohydrates, protein, which we've already discussed, and lipids. Now, I know we discussed saturated fats and how they can affect your health. However, there are such things as healthier fats. Avocado is a good source of one called monounsaturated.
So just like with the protein, we tend to eat a little bit too much. Now, fats are not a food group, and they're essential to our diet. But again, understanding the serving size and learning how to limit them in our diet is going to make a big difference. So, for example, refer back to your chart, the recommended fats per day, your daily allowance for recommended fats. But for example, I fit in the category of a 35-year-old woman. So for a 35-year-old woman, my recommended daily allowance for fat is only 5 teaspoons. 5 teaspoons is actually equivalent to 1/8 of an avocado. If you look at this avocado, 1/8 of an avocado is not a lot. So as much as I would want to eat the entire avocado, 1/8 is really all my body needs as far as fats.
Yes, avocados are a good fat, and you can also use them as a substitution in your baking goods. Have you ever used avocado oil?
I have. I love adding avocado to my brownies. So instead of using my oil, a lot of brownies would call for a vegetable oil. I actually use avocado. They are absolutely fantastic. I even make black bean brownies with avocado, which are absolutely fantastic. You can fool just about anybody as far as that recipe.
So once again, that is another way that we can substitute items and whenever we are baking goods or cooking.
With the tuna, we definitely want to get as much of the liquid out. I'm going to add the tomato, the jalapeno, and the cilantro. Add some of this nice, pretty red onion. We want to make sure that we add that lime just at the end so the avocado doesn't start to brown.
So once you're done with your tuna de gallo, you can enjoy it with some baked chips. It's another way to consume whole grains, or you can do a substitution for more veggies.
Now, Rosie, as we both know, we don't always eat at home every day, every meal. So for the next time that we go out, remember one of those P's is prepare, and we have to prepare. So one of the things that we can do in order to prepare better for eating healthy, even going out, is we can look at the menu. We can look at, most of our menus are online now, so we can look at menus online and see healthier food choices. Most restaurants have done a pretty good job of having a healthier menu option. If that restaurant does not have a healthy option, then maybe even packing your own little healthy meal so you're not tempted by those other unhealthy choices. I know one thing that I do is I'll eat a little bit before to help me not eat as much at the restaurant. And I might have some carrot sticks and some celery, or I love cucumbers, so maybe some cucumbers with this little tuna de gallo would be fantastic as like a little appetizer before I go to my meal. Another tip for when we eat out is by asking your wait staff to hold or substitute options. So perhaps I might want a sweet potato. I can ask to hold the butter. Or maybe a salad, I can ask for the salad dressing on the side, or ask for healthier salad dressing choices. Maybe they have a light dressing or a fat-free dressing. So these are different things that you can do in order to make your meal healthier. You can also even ask for a substitution, let's say for an egg. You can have egg whites instead of a whole egg. You can have egg substitute versus an egg. So there's so many different things that you can do. You can hold the sour cream. I know that's a big one when it comes to a baked potato. Might save you an extra 100 calories. This is a great, healthier option.
I know when I go out to eat, I like to substitute my sour cream for Greek yogurt. So while on that, it's also a good way to consume dairy. Now, the My Plate actually recommends that we consume 3 cups of dairy daily. So that's the equivalent of having 8 ounces of milk. That's considered 1 serving. One concern with dairy is the high fat percentage and cholesterol in it. So one way to go around that is to look for items 1% milk, 2% low fat or skim. Those are good ways to go about it. There's some people who are a little sensitive to lactose or lactose sensitive, or they just like to avoid milk. We still need calcium for them. So one thing that we can do to encourage individuals is to educate them on Greek yogurt. It's actually low in lactose, so for individuals who have lactose sensitivity, they can actually eat that instead and still consume the nutrients needed.
One thing to keep in mind is that dairy is a food group. Dairy provides calcium, which we need for bones. We also need for our heart. And we also, one of the other reasons why dairy is so important is because it helps to maintain blood pressure. So very important when it comes to chronic illness. It also helps to reduce the risk of osteoporosis.
There are other non-dairy sources to consume calcium. Some include kale. You can also look for foods that are calcium fortified. So these can include breads, cereals, even orange juice.
So when choosing your low-fat dairy, in order to eliminate some of the added sugars and added calories, try to avoid flavored milks, drinkable yogurts, and also those desserts like puddings, as yummy as they are, a lot of times they're added with sugar and added calories that we don't need. So today we made tuna de gallo and talked about healthy fats, dairy, and protein. Thank you for watching. See you next time.